UFC 303, Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka 2, International Fight Week has just taken place, with Payton Talbott putting everyone in the bantamweight division on notice as the hottest prospect moving forward and up those rankings, and then Garry winning himself absolutely no fans once again, and Alex Pereira showing that he is the new face of mixed martial arts. And in this video, I'm going to be giving you a recap of every single fight on the card and all the card's best moments. Kicking it off with the first fight, Ricky Simon versus Vinicius Oliveira. So this was, as I predicted, this was a good fight to actually kick off the card, and I think it was mainly down to the animosity between the two of them. I mean, they were both pushing each other, kind of shoving each other, screaming at each other. I mean, you had Ricky Simon barking at Vinicius Oliveira in the weigh-ins as well. So yeah, there was a bit of animosity there, so it was good going into it. And I will say Vinicius kicked it off very confidently. He was using his kickboxing range extremely well and was using the leg kicks. As I said, his leg kicks and the power he generates with them, that was definitely making the difference in this fight, and it's definitely his best weapon. And Ricky Simon was just extremely tentative. He just did not look like he felt comfortable throughout most of the fight, and I would definitely, from the start of things, I'd give Vinicius Oliveira the first round without a doubt. And the second round was a lot closer, mainly down to Ricky Simon checking the leg kick, and I thought Vinicius Oliveira had like a partial break in his leg or something, because when he checked the leg kick, when Simon checked the leg kick, Vinicius Oliveira went straight back, similar to what Conor McGregor did against Dustin Poirier in their third fight. He started walking all the way back and pretty much backstepped all the way across the octagon, and you could tell that he was in a lot of pain. But it was weird when it came from the second to the third round, his corner was icing his other leg. They weren't icing the leg that was actually damaged. They were icing his left leg, and I believe it was his right leg that was actually damaged from the fight. So yeah, Vinicius did come back very well in the third round as well. He was mixing things up extremely well. He just looked extremely confident compared to Ricky Simon, which is pretty strange for Simon when he's gone against a lot better opponents like Song Yadong, literally not too far back, and Mario Batista as well, who are up there. They're ranked, and he's looked more confident against them in comparison to Vinicius Oliveira, who's a lot lower ranked. And I would say those guys pose more of a threat than Vinicius Oliveira overall, even after this fight's been finished. But Simon just didn't show any real urgency there, and yeah, he was getting outstruck on the feet, and the worst part of all is he just didn't utilize his takedowns nearly enough. And especially when it came to him getting the control, like any form of control time, he just would not keep it there. He would not keep it on the ground. He wouldn't control Vinicius Oliveira on the ground. Vinicius Oliveira just found ways to get back up. Simon didn't really challenge him, and I will say with Vinicius Oliveira, his takedown defense definitely improved. He stuffed 9 takedowns overall. That's just to his credit as well. Mixing up the kickboxing, defending the takedowns, which is Ricky Simon's best part of his game, and it just left Ricky Simon with not really, realistically, just didn't leave him with many options. So Vinicius Oliveira improved very much when it came to his just defensive capabilities, especially with the takedown defense. And yeah, I think it's completely fair that he took the 30-27 win in this one. Moving on to Tsuruya versus Carlos Hernandez. Now in this fight, the transitions were very interesting. They were very good from both guys, but the wrestling of Tsuruya and the speed was taking over in a majority of the exchanges. And as I said in the predictions, Tsuruya does a very good job of mixing up his tools, from the strikes to then going into the ground game and then transitionally working his way through and finding advantageous positions. And he was doing that pretty much most of the fight when it came to this matchup. Carlos Hernandez, though, as I said in the predictions, you know, when it came to submission threats, he was defending himself very well when it came into positions where Tsuruya was going to set something up, and Carlos Hernandez did a very good job when it came to that defense. And that's where I perfect prediction. I did really think that he was going to get I thought Ray Tsuruya was going to get a decision win in this one. I did think he was going to get 30-27, but regardless, he got the decision win. And yeah, Hernandez did a very good job defensively. I mean, he got out of a crucifix and he got out of the twister attempt as well. The twister was probably like 80 to honestly 85% of the way there to actually being finished. And yeah, he did a very good job of just making sure that he did not get taken out in those situations. It was also when it came to the third round, the first and second were pretty clear for Tsuruya, but when it came to the third round, Carlos Hernandez was picking it up a bit and he did have better control and his gas tank was better too. Tsuruya was definitely slowing down in that third round, and if it was 5 rounds, it definitely could be a different story, but yeah, Ray Tsuruya was just too dominant through those first 2 rounds when it came to the wrestling and the transitions and landing the shots as well. He outlanded him on the feet pretty much 3-1, and Hernandez was pretty much like, there wasn't really any offensive capability from him. He was on the defense for pretty much 15 minutes, but he just found that advantageous control when it came to the third round over Tsuruya, so that would have got him that third round. And I will say, looking at this fight, especially through those first 2 rounds, Tsuruya is definitely going to be a problem in the next few years, and it's really good to see another prospect coming up through Japan, alongside Rinya Nakamura and Tatsuro Taira. So yeah, definitely a very, very good fight for Ray Tsuruya to come out of this and, test himself in kind of all areas of MMA against someone that's had a bit more UFC experience. Moving on, Andrei Arlovski versus Martin Buday. Look, definitely a slow-paced fight. It wasn't really super exciting, and it wasn't high level really. It's just there was like a lot of labored clinch exchanges between the two of them, and even though Arlovski did string some good combinations together through the second round, I think Buday just did a better job of just making sure he had that forward pressure on lock, and he was just getting the better of the strikes in the clinch overall. And I mean, it's just, yeah, it was a pretty lackluster fight, to be honest. It's not a very impressive win for Martin Buday, fighting someone that is 13 odd years older than him. If he's making a fight competitive against a 45-year-old Andrei Arlovski, then he's going to be running into a lot of issues moving forward in the heavyweight division. And Arlovski, he's had an amazing career overall, but it looks like from what Dana said in the post-fight press conference, they're not going to extend him. So I think this is pretty much it for Arlovski, and to be fair, it should be so, but I wish he did get some kind of like really good speech at the end about his career or anything like that, just some justice for him leaving the UFC, because I mean, knowing Andrei Arlovski, he's probably going to fight till he's 100 and he's going to go into another promotion, but UFC being the biggest stage, it would have been good to see him have some form of spiel, something like just giving him that moment. When you look at Martin Buday, he definitely needs to, I think, just improve overall if he's going to be fighting anyone near that top 15. Yeah, so overall, wasn't the greatest fight. Moving up, Waterson-Gomez versus Gillian Robertson. Absolute dominance from Gillian Robertson. I mean, she's just a completely different level on the ground, not only compared to Waterson-Gomez, but compared to pretty much most, realistically, like most aside from maybe 1 or 2 out of all the women in the UFC. Like, she is very advanced on the ground when it comes to those grappling exchanges, hunting for submissions aggressively as well. She's probably the best at that, especially with the arm bars and the rear naked chokes. I mean, she was going for about 3,000 arm bars in this fight. She did a very good job, especially through the first and second round, just completely dominated her. The commentators did say that, I think it was DC that was pretty confident that it was 2 10-8 rounds. I think it could have been close, but I don't think there was realistically probably not enough damage landed, I'd say, like not to the point where Waterson was anywhere near quitting. There were just a lot of pot shots. If she got any further damage like within mount and Waterson-Gomez wasn't going to move, it probably would have got stopped by TKO anyway. But yeah, when you look at Waterson-Gomez through the fight, you know, got destroyed through the first and second round. I mean, you can see that 12 minutes of control time compared to 19 seconds. But in the third round, she did have an opportunity, you know, to really use that karate base, that front leg side kick, keep it at range, you know, pick Gillian Robertson apart, at least for a bit. But she just didn't show the urgency within that third round, because in the first and second, she got taken down basically straight away. And she went for a takedown. And that's, like, in terms of urgency, that's the exact opposite thing that you want to be doing if you're Michelle Waterson-Gomez against someone that is so much more advanced than you in that space of MMA, being the grappling. And yeah, I just feel like in terms of a fight IQ sense, it just was not there. And she's past her prime. She's, you know, 38 odd years old, I believe. And yeah, overall, Gillian Robertson had a fantastic performance. And, you know, she was, you know, picking up, she was attempting a lot of times. She was trying to attempt for arm bars, you know, rear naked chokes, guillotine at one point, I believe. But yeah, it was a dominant performance from Gillian Robertson. Just the level of grappling that she is at this point in time, it's definitely the thing that's going to carry her through the rankings for sure. She's going to move up. I don't know if she would get any, you know, through the top 5 or anything like that. I think she needs to improve her striking a lot more. But yeah, her grappling is 100% one of the biggest threats in that division. So yeah, she'll definitely be moving up. And you know, Michelle Waterson-Gomez, as I said in the predictions, I think this is probably the best to call it a career. Or sorry, if she didn't, she was probably going to get cut, to be honest. She's like 0-5. She did have a pretty great career maintaining consistency through the rankings, but I think that it's definitely smart that she called it a career in this. Moving on, Payton Talbott versus Yanis Ghemmouri. Holy shit balls. Yep, Talbott is going to be a serious problem in the division, and there's just not much to say about the fight, because literally he just walked in, threw a straight punch, took his money and left. He just absolutely annihilated. He did so well. He overachieved in this fight. I think you just look at him, he generates so much power in those hands, and I honestly can't wait to see who they give him next. They'll push him for a top 15 pretty fast, and that Adrian Yanis call out, I think, is a very good call out, because I think it's going to give him a very advanced test on the feet. If he can get through that top 15, 100%. And Adrian Yanis is going to have his hands full with this guy, seriously. Moving up to Charles Jourdain versus Gene Silva. Man, I said it. The guys out of this fighting nerds gym are like, they're so dangerous. They're so consistent. Gene, through this fight, he looks so calm, composed, and he was definitely having fun in that fight, like the entire time. And when it came to the striking, he had Jourdain biting on every single feint from literally the start of the fight. And you could tell how concerned Jourdain was with Gene Silva's power. Like Gene Silva, I mean, he could feel that there was a complete difference there. Charles Jourdain had the speed, but the power was completely different. And the uppercuts that Gene Silva was landing they were brutal. They were rough, and he got pinpoint accuracy on them as well. You know, just exiting the clinch exchanges, popping that uppercut straight through the guard. Very accurate, very composed, very confident in this fight, and he was doing a very good job of getting up from the takedowns. Charles Jourdain did land 3 takedowns in this fight, and he got up from pretty much every single one. And you know, fantastic, just a fantastic win for Gene Silva. He gave Jourdain his first KO loss. Jourdain's no slouch. He's very well rounded. He's very fast. And yeah, Gene Silva, I am definitely keen to see what is next for him moving up in that division. Moving on to Cub Swanson versus Andrei Fili. Look, I'm pretty content that this got fight of the night, to be honest. Like, it's definitely good to see that both of these guys, you know, as veterans, they really got to stand out on this card, being in the UFC for so long. And to the point as well, from what I was making when it came to the predictions video, this fight should have been on the main card. This should have been on that main card over Bueno Silva and Macy Chiasson. Just swap the positions, because you look at the outcome of this and look how amazing this fight was, and look how pretty lackluster dog shit the other one was. So yeah, I do honestly, it was just such a missed opportunity from the UFC to not put this on the main card. But when we look at the fight itself, you know, it is what it is. When we look at the fight itself, I did have it 29-28 going to Fili. I think overall, I think that was the correct decision that the judges made. It was 29-28 for him, even though it was a split decision there. It was very close, but I think the 29-28 was the correct decision in Fili's favor, because he was just doing a very good job of managing the distance. His movement was very good, especially through the first round, and he was utilizing that 4-inch reach advantage extremely well too. And yeah, I feel like he was just stringing the shots a bit better than Cub Swanson was. He landed a bit, like, obviously it was very close, 5 shots in between them, but the 6 strikes were in Andrei Fili's favor. And yeah, that's just the stats are literally stating that he was landing the more significant shots. So he did a very good job managing the range, you know, using the tools that he had an advantage with. He used the wrestling, had 3 minutes and 50 seconds of control time there as well. And yeah, he just did a very good job. And I think this is just a good win for Fili mentally, trying to, you know, just to see if he was actually capable of pushing deeper into that division again and trying to make another run. And yeah, just a good win from Fili. Definitely tested him. I mean, would expect no less from Cub Swanson, but yeah, when it comes to Cub, I don't want to see him retire yet. I think he can come back. He still looks good, and I just want to see him, if he can have another fight, I want to see him hopefully leave on a win. Moving on to the feature prelim, Joe Pyfer versus Marc-Andre Barriault. Pyfer looked very good. He looked very confident coming into this after obviously losing to Jack Hermanson, and it definitely, you know, it looked like he had a chip on his shoulder. It looked like he had something to prove. This fight was really down to whoever, it was like a forward pressure seesaw fight. Whoever got the forward pressure would either get a huge advantage in the fight or would obviously clearly finish the fight, which Pyfer did a great job of doing, brutal job of doing. He did a great job of, you know, dictating the pace, and he just annihilated Marc-Andre Barriault. And yeah, this is great for Joe Pyfer's confidence. Obviously sucks for Barriault. You know, he lost to Chris Curtis, which I think he won that fight, and then he just got absolutely starched in this one. So hopefully he does come back. I mean, he's 34 now, so it's going to be tricky to see what's going to happen with him. But yeah, with Joe Pyfer, a very good win for him to try and, you know, enter that top 15 again, have another attempt. I think that moving a little bit slower for Joe Pyfer is probably the best decision. And I will say this was definitely close to the Talbott finish and the Pereira's finish for finish of the night, but yeah, overall it was a fantastic win for Joe Pyfer. And moving on to the main card, Ian Garry versus Michael Venom Page. Look, Ian Garry, he did a fantastic job of not winning himself any more fans. He's just boring. I just don't rate his style. Like, honestly, I think I'd be okay with him if he didn't shit talk so much. Like, because, you know, if you shit talk and you can back that up, then, you know, then they're likable. Like, prime example, aside from the Leon Edwards fight, is Colby Covington. Colby Covington had wars with Kamaru Usman, and that backed it up for him. He's the biggest shit talker in the UFC easily, but he backed it up with his fights against Usman. And now you look at what happened with him against Leon Edwards. A lot of people hate him now because of that performance he had against Leon Edwards, and that's the same with Ian Garry. But Ian Garry just really hasn't had any fantastic performances. I mean, he had that amazing comeback against Song Kanan, but Song Kanan isn't a ranked fighter. You know, we need that kind of performance from him against a ranked fighter, and that's where he is going to get that love. But at the moment, you know, like when he won this fight, no one cheered. It was silent, and it is sad to see, but he just needs to pick it up. He's weighing too heavily on the shit talking. He needs to weigh it up with better performances. And when we look at Ian Garry, he just didn't even look that comfortable on the feet. But I will say, to his credit, not to shit talk him this whole entire time, he did what he was supposed to do in the sense of making sure that he was executing those takedowns. and he grappled very well to make sure that he could actually secure the decision, which was obviously a pretty boring decision. I mean, Michael Venom Page was definitely carrying this fight in terms of the excitement, especially through that second round. And I will say that, you know, when we look at the round for round, Ian Garry, first round, he took it obviously out of that control and with that rear naked choke attempt. But the second round was 100% Michael Venom Page's round, without a doubt, 100% in his favor. He cracked Garry multiple times especially with those step-in twos. Those shots were very, very effective, and he landed a couple hooks. And I will give it to Garry. I thought his chin was not going to hold up. He got cracked. It was pretty bad at some points, and his chin did hold up pretty well, so I'll give him that. You go 1-1. You go 1-1 through the first round for Ian Garry and the second round for Michael Venom Page. And then the third round was obviously very razor close, but I do see how it was a 29-28 to Garry, because yes, MVP had the control in the first half of the round, but it was within Ian Garry's guard. And then when you look at Garry's control in the second half of the third round, he was on MVP's back, which when you look at it, it is a more advantageous position. So that's going to score higher than Michael Venom Page's control time. So yeah, it's because, you know, the advantageous position is the back taking, and then the guard, when you're in guard and you're in control and top control, it's more of a neutral position more than anything. So I do understand ultimately how Ian Garry did win by a 29-28 decision. But yeah, honestly, he did play his game plan right. He did what he needed to do. But I mean, I think if he's having a performance like that and he's that tentative on the feet, he's going to be struggling against pretty much anyone in the top 5. Moving up, Mayra Bueno Silva versus Macy Chiasson, the people's main event. For look, I'm not going to try and shit on this the whole entire time. Like, for what we actually got, it wasn't the most terrible fight, because as I said in the predictions, Mayra did make it pretty scrappy. She did make it pretty ugly, and it was pretty close through the first round. But Macy Chiasson, she did a very good job of using her strength and that size to her advantage. And, you know, with that, especially with the wrestling as well, she got that one takedown attempt. She got it, she secured it, and that eventually led to that downward elbow, and that obviously ended it. That cut was very bad. That was a gash and a half, and I do think that it was definitely right to call that fight. I think that the gash just was too big. I was very surprised. I didn't realize how big it was. I mean, there was blood everywhere, obviously, but yeah, it was a beautiful elbow, landed in the guard, and yeah, honestly, I think it's fair enough that Macy Chiasson did win this by that doctor's stoppage. And yeah, obviously Mayra Bueno Silva was, you know, she wasn't happy, but I mean, she got blood everywhere, including Dana White's mouth, apparently. And yeah, I just do think that this was the right call for Macy Chiasson to get that win by that TKO doctor's stoppage. And honestly, it's just, still pissed. I think this should have been swapped out for the Fili and Swanson fight. I just don't understand the UFC's logic behind this placement, and it just would have been so much more memorable for the main card. Moving on, Anthony Smith versus Roman Dolidze. Look, I will say credit to Smith for, you know, getting in there after all the opponent switches. You know, that's got to be a pain in the ass to do, and he had the right mentality. He got in there and he just said, fuck it, I will fight anyone, I don't care. That's great from him. Great from Dolidze as well on short notice. This card was an absolute mess, which we will definitely get to very soon with the next fight coming up. But yeah, look, with Dolidze, he looked pretty good. I will say he did look good. He took the bet away from me 100%. I think it was mainly down to the speed. I think Dolidze's speed was very, very good, and it was very, you could just see the difference between their speed when it came to the striking, and, you know, even the entry attempts and the clinches. Just Roman Dolidze was just faster overall. He dealt a lot more damage to Anthony Smith. He outlanded him 2-1, and, you know, Anthony Smith, he did a good job of, you know, surviving through the halfway point of the, I believe it was the second round. But after that halfway point of the second round, there was no way that Anthony Smith was going to win that fight. I mean, he just looked way too tired going into the third. There was no snap on his punches or anything like that, and he was way too tired to get that fight to the ground against a wrestler and try and hunt for a submission. So yeah, mainly Roman Dolidze, good performance. I think he should stay at light heavyweight. I don't think he should be going down to middleweight. Being 35 and getting pieced up by Nassourdine Imavov, I think was a big tell. That speed difference is just too much at middleweight, and I think it would be good if he can slot around the 10th ranked position in light heavyweight and just stay there, especially going up in age. You know, the heavier you go, the more okay it is to do. So yeah, I think, and also as well with Roman Dolidze from a stylistic point of view, him being a wrestler and having that wrestling base is going to be an advantage in the light heavyweight division, more so because the light heavyweight division is just so non-wrestle heavy. Pretty much there's only like Ankalaev who is actually a decent wrestler, or somewhat decent wrestler in there. So yeah, I think it's just a better idea and just a better path to go down for Roman Dolidze to get success is to stay in the light heavyweight division. Moving on to Dan Ige versus Diego Lopes, our co-main event that we somehow had happen. I have no idea how. I don't even know where the hell I'm supposed to even start with this. It was a complete mess of not only a co-main event, but just a card of just, you know, trying to actually piece things together, which the UFC did a very good job of in terms of actually getting it on the day. You know, humongous credit to Dan Ige, and obviously respect to Diego Lopes as well, you know, somehow making this fight happen. Both of these guys, honestly, Daddy Dana, Uncle Dana, whatever you want to call him, give both of these guys 50k bonuses for this. This is ridiculous. Like, that's insane if they don't get any form of reimbursement for this. Dan Ige would have been paid a bag to travel across there, and so he should have. And hopefully Diego Lopes got some compensation as well for all this shit that's happened. He's gone from fighting the 3rd ranked Brian Ortega to fighting the 10th or 11th ranked Dan Ige, and you know, that's a huge risk for Diego Lopes in terms of his momentum and overall for both of these guys. You know, even for Dan Ige, I mean, he's never been finished, and fighting a guy like Diego Lopes who has KO power, is extremely aggressive with his submissions, did not finish Dan Ige. And you know, it's just a huge respect for both of these guys. And honestly, having it on that shorter notice with all the changes, I think we got a pretty good result overall. And you know, I was really keen to see Brian Ortega fight Lopes, and it was definitely like my preferred fight, but you know, you just can't complain with this for what the hell was going on. And you know, when it comes to Brian Ortega, that's a whole nother story. I mean, I don't know what the hell is going to go, what's even going to happen with him. I don't know if they're going to, you know, try a rematch for Diego Lopes with him, because he's still 3rd ranked. So Diego Lopes has a lot of reasoning there to actually fight him. But then, yeah, Brian Ortega, there would be other options. There'd be Evloev, you know, or even Diego Lopes with Evloev for a second fight. There's Aljamain Sterling. There's a lot of options there. So it's really, really fascinating to see what is going to happen after this shit show. I mean, you know, we look at Lopes, like, he cut down to 145. Then Ortega had to, you know, fight at 155 because of the weight cut. Something was wrong with him, which we don't know. It hasn't been disclosed, at least at the time that I'm doing this video. And then Ortega drops out, and then Ige has to come in, and then it's a 165 catch weight. So then Lopes is technically having to be even heavier. I don't even know what he weighed in at. He probably weighed in at possibly even less than that. And then Dan Ige is obviously coming in, you know, off the couch. I mean, obviously he was active in training, but he's technically just coming off the couch. You're coming in on 4 hours notice, you're coming off the couch. And you know, like, it's just insane that even these guys were able to go 3 rounds. Cardio did not wane at all for either of them. They just did a fantastic job, and honestly, they need to be credited for this. And you know, I've seen comments about people saying that Diego Lopes, oh, you know, he should have came in, he should have finished this fight. Firstly, Ige has never been finished. And also for Lopes, there was no preparation and game plan for a guy on 4 hours notice. So you can't expect a specific result for either of these guys overall. By no means for either of these guys a bad performance. And I think I did see something about these guys wanting to fight in the on Sphere, or in the Sphere UFC 306, and yeah, they've got to get it. They have to get it after that. Honestly, there's no brainer. They should just be getting exactly what they want for what they did for the UFC. You know, when we look at the fight specifically, Ige did a great job with the submission defense, and he was catching Lopes in the exchanges pretty well. And then when we look at Lopes, you know, Lopez's control was very good, and that's what ultimately won him the fight, similar to the Ian Garry fight. It was definitely pretty tough for both of them to actually get through this. So yeah, overall a great co-main event for what it was and the shit show that happened. And yeah, honestly, Daddy Dana, Uncle Dana, give him a damn bonus. Moving on to the main event, Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka 2. Payton is not human. I don't see anyone beating this guy in the light heavyweight division at this point. Honestly, he is insane. The power that he generates is godly. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous. And I will say, like, honestly, on Yuri's side, man, I do honestly feel sorry for him. But as I predicted, he did not change up the game plan that he originally was wanting to, you know, I mean, what I originally said would be best in terms of that wrestling heavy approach. And Pereira just adjusted perfectly compared to their first fight, and he pressured Jiri backwards and was the aggressor from the start. Whereas in the first fight, you can see that Jiri was the aggressor, and he was landing better shots in that first fight and had Pereira in a little bit of trouble. Pereira was in absolutely no trouble in this fight. Jiri landed 7 strikes. He landed absolutely nothing, and it was crazy to see because Jiri was looking so dialed in on the walkout. I was like, oh, I'm borderline contemplating here, like he is ready. And I was like thinking, oh, if he's going to implement that wrestling game, it could be very interesting. But the moment Jiri got caught in that first round, his composure just went out the window, and you could tell from the his mannerisms just completely changed, and he just did not look comfortable from the first shot, the first clean shot that Pereira actually landed on him. And, you know, Pereira on his side, in terms of that game plan, chewed up that lead leg pretty much instantly, ripped his body. That sounded like a firecracker when he ripped the body with the leg kick. What was pretty surprising, which we haven't really seen from Pereira too much, is the head kick. He got the head kick through, which he doesn't usually actually use them, but I mean, it clearly worked. He caught Jiri so clean with the head kick. Yuri's hands were like out here, bang, straight up, gone, flatlined him, and, you know, straight onto the ground and pound. I think Herb Dean, I will say, Herb Dean did a very, very good job of making sure that he let that fight continue and go in for the ground and pound. I mean, after the first fight, from what we saw in that controversial stoppage from Marc-Andre, Herb Dean was right to let it go. And I think, honestly, letting it continue for Alex Pereira to land the ground and pound, I think that is just how Jiri had to go out. He had to go out by getting properly finished. I honestly thought, because I was in the second round, I honestly thought in the first round, I thought that Herb Dean called it prematurely literally at the end of the first round, because I didn't see the time. I was too focused on them actually like moving. I didn't see the time. I was like, oh no, not again. Like, oh, I thought it was again that they had just called it off for Jiri. And I thought, honestly, if they've called it early for Jiri again, Jiri is going to murder absolutely everyone in that arena if that happened again for a title fight. I mean, going through, you know, winning the title, getting injured, having to vacate it, fighting Alex Pereira, getting knocked out by Alex Pereira, which was a, you know, early stoppage, and then fighting him again and then getting another early stoppage in the first round, that would have been insane. But yeah, lucky it didn't, and the time actually went. I was so confused when it happened, but yeah, luckily it didn't. But I mean, obviously it did not last very much longer. But back to Alex Pereira, when we look at him, I mean, he has got options now. He's got options for sure. He's got heavyweight, and he's also got the Ankalaev fight there too. But ultimately, you know, when we look at those matchups, I'll look at them in the next video specifically. Just overall for Alex Pereira, ultimately, it was a fantastic win for him, especially at his age, and he just looks unbeatable at light heavyweight, and he is basically the face of MMA at this point with his consistency. Now moving on to the fight card awards, kicking it off with the fighter to watch, Payton Talbott. Talbott just over-delivered in this fight, and I honestly did think, when I said in the predictions, I thought Yanis would be able to test him a little bit at range with his kick speed, but nope, murdered him. Just Payton Talbott absolutely executed him. So yeah, it was bad. It was very bad. So Payton Talbott, he's going to shoot up the division, and I'm very, very keen to see what fight he has next. And you know, I think that as I said before, that Adrian Yanis fight is there. I think that would be an amazing test for him on the feet, and if he gets through that, he is going to be hitting the top 15 for sure. And now, finish of the night, Alex Pereira. Look, Talbott and Pyfer were definitely edging it, but Alex Pereira getting the finish so brutally, and against an opposition like Jiri Prochazka, like honestly, and not only that in terms of the quality of opponent, but this opens up that really opens up that opportunity for him to possibly become a triple champion. And I think that just really ultimately just pulls it way more in his favor to get that award. So getting to see him take on like a John Jones or Aspinall, that would just make the MMA world just go absolutely insane. And everyone wants the heavyweight fight to happen at this point, you know, especially because Alex Pereira isn't getting any younger, and just if he can pull that off, the world will go insane. Now moving on to the most notable fight card moments on this card. In third place, I'm giving it to Andrei Arlovski and Michelle Waterson-Gomez's retirements. I mean, it's a bit of a side note in comparison to, you know, the brutal finishes this card gave us. And it's Arlovski's last fight in the UFC, which Dana White has confirmed at the post-fight press conference, which is just, I don't know, it's pretty crazy to see that he isn't going to be in the UFC anymore. You know, he had a very memorable career, and it'll just be interesting to see what he does next, because, you know, he's been fighting for 25 years. Well, that's only at the pro level. So he's been fighting his whole entire life, and, you know, I can't even imagine what the hell he would do, you know, outside of the UFC or outside of MMA or outside of fighting, realistically. So yeah, it is a big moment. Even though it didn't get a spotlight, it is a big moment. And also, you know, the tribute for Michelle Waterson-Gomez, which was very good. You know, it isn't something we normally see, and I think they need to make that for all the top fighters that do call it quits. You know, it shows that the company actually cares about the fighters, and as we know, the pay isn't great for them. So it's, you know, especially in the lower rankings, so it's good to, you know, give them something, especially when sending them off, to show that, you know, that they've put in the effort, the care that they've put into the company and everything like that. And, you know, it gives something for the fans, and, you know, it really makes them feel valued in the company. So yeah, I think it was a very nice touch. Even though I was low down the card and everything like that, I think it's just definitely something notable that, you know, we need to see more of in the UFC. Now moving on to the second most notable part of the card, back again, Payton Talbott and his KO. You know, as I previously said, this is just a statement for Payton Talbott. He's getting he's got Joe Rogan, he's got Sean O'Malley, he's getting a lot of people talking about him now, and I would not be surprised if he gets that Sean O'Malley treatment and, you know, he gets pumped through the rankings, especially if he keeps decapitating people like this. And moving on to the most notable moment on the card, Alex Pereira and that KO. I mean, I can't give it to anyone else. Just a perfect way to top off the card. He looked even better than he did in their first fight against Jiri, and, you know, with broken toes and on short notice too. And Jiri just looked completely outmatched in pretty much all aspects there. I mean, when it comes to, you know, the division moving forward, I think Alex Pereira, honestly, he is going to retire there undefeated. I think he absolutely, especially the legs, I think he annihilates Magomed Ankalaev's legs. And yeah, aside from Ankalaev, who is there? Carlos Ulberg possibly, but that power differential there, yeah, I think Alex Pereira is going to retire on a very happy note in that division. Now, speaking of Alex Pereira and that light heavyweight domination, speaking of other fighters in that division, if you haven't already, check out my mythical matchups video on Jan Blachowicz versus Kamaru Usman back in 2021, if they were going to fight when they were both at the top of their game. I've just got it here on the screen. And if you have enjoyed this video and you want to see more MMA based content, please chuck a like, comment, subscribe, and I will hopefully catch you in the next one.